Hello viewers, here welcome to this lecture on thermal stratification in lakes. Now what is thermal stratification? Thermal stratification basically refers to a process where a lake's water separates into distinct layers with different temperatures and densities, and this is driven by seasonal changes in temperatures. As the heat from the sun hits on the surface of the water, it tends to increase the temperature at the surface, but lower levels of the water, lower depths of the water tend to have lesser temperatures. So basically that now causes various temperature zones as you move from the top of the lake to the bottom. Now, the density of water tends to be at its maximum at 4 degrees centigrade. And because of that, the warmer the water, the less dense the water is. Okay, so the warmer, less dense water tends to float at the bottom, while the colder water, which is more dense, usually settle at the bottom. So basically that now makes the water to have various temperature zones, and based on that the lakes has been divided into various substrata. We have the epilineal, which is at the surface, and we have the metalimnion, also called the thermocline or the chemocline, that's at the middle, and then you now have the hypolimnion at the bottom. So now let us look at each of these temperature zones of the lake based on the temperature strata from top to bottom. First, the epilineal. What's the epilineal? Epilineal is the topmost part of the lake's water, or the topmost strata of the lake, basically having the warmer temperatures because it is being exposed to sunlight, and it is also mixed by wave and wind actions. So basically it has a higher temperature, and because of the activities of photosynthetic organisms, this layer tends to also be rich in oxygen because the phytoplanktons and other photosynthetic organisms carry out photosynthesis, especially the algae. They carry out photosynthesis, making use of carbon dioxide, and as they produce oxygen, the oxygen tends to accumulate at the surface. So you have higher temperature and higher oxygen level. And one thing that's very peculiar to this the epilineal is that it has lesser nutrient concentration, basically because the nutrients settle to the bottom. The next layer is the metalimnion, also called the thermocline or the chemocline. Now the metalimnion is the middle layer of the stratification, and basically it has lower temperature than the epilineal. And there is actually a drastic reduction of temperature from the metalimnion down to the epilineal. That's why it's called a thermocline. There's a drastic reduction in temperature. So the epilineal has higher temperature than the metalimnial, and the temperature decreases with depth. The metalimnion is an intermediate stratum that prevents the hypolimnion from mixing with the epilineal. The next one we want to look at is the hypolimnion. The hypolimnion basically is the bottom, colder, denser stratum. The more dense water, because the cooler the water becomes, the more denser it becomes. The more denser water settles at the bottom, and this region usually have very low temperatures, compared to that of the epilineal and the metalimnion. So basically it has low temperature, and the oxygen concentration in this hypolimnion is very low. It is said to be hypoxic, that is, it has low oxygen concentration, and in most cases, or in some cases, it becomes anoxic, especially when there's high microbial activity. The hypolimnion becomes anoxic. Now, the microorganisms make use of the oxygen to break down, to decompose organic matter, dead animals, dead plants, and other organic debris. And as they do that, they use up the oxygen. So the hypolimnion tend to have very low oxygen concentration. Now, let us look at the temperature ranges of each of these strata of the lake, of a freshwater body. Now, the epilimion usually have a temperature of about 29 to 30 degrees Celsius, and basically that's the temperature, maybe 28, 29, 27, 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius, followed by the metalimnion. The metalimnion usually have a temperature of about 25, 20 down to about 10 degrees Celsius. Then the hypolimnion is usually from 10 degrees below. So the bottom usually have a temperature of about 4 degrees Celsius. So that's the temperature stratification, and the hypolimnion has a lot of nutrients. The nutrients such as nitrates, phosphates, iron, manganese, sulfates, they all settle at the bottom. Thanks a lot for watching, and please keep watching more of my videos. I am Dr. Gijo Harry.